Well, hey there. I am Pastor Cody.
Yes, you are.
And this is my co-host. And this is my co-host, Pastor Matt.
Yeah, and we're going to have a conversation. And this one's going to be lit because we're just in a strange mood today.
Yeah, we're both ripe. We were ripe today.
We've been saying all kinds of crazy stuff. And then we were like, dude, we might as well just go live.
Yeah, we might as well just do this thing.
Get this stuff out. Let's do the thing. You know the thing, man?
We're going to do the thing. I don't have a Biden impression yet.
We need to work on one right now. Yeah, we're always bringing the other guy into it. Wait, I got one. You ready? Wait, it gets better. It gets better.
All right, now fall asleep. Oh, gosh. This is not a political podcast.
No.
In case this is your first time listening or watching.
Unless you get an ice cream cone for me.
We make fun of everybody regardless of political affiliation, gender, so forth. It does not matter. Political or economic status, you're all fair game. We do a Trump impression. He pops out just about every week. And I've listened to this podcast myself, and I do happen to think that it's an okay impression. It's not great, but it's okay.
It's
okay.
It's not that good. It's not.
Did you hear he's coming out with his
I did.
I'm making my own social media. It's going to be We're calling it MySpace.
No, I think it's called Truth Social. So stupid. I'm like, okay, first of all, you're old.
Right.
Second of all,
somebody who's in
old.
their 70s has no business creating a social media.
Third of all, you're old. I think I'm too old for social media now.
Yeah.
And I'm in my 30s. I'm like, dude, you're like twice my age.
The first thing that gets reported on
Literally.
that's going to be like, Trump didn't pay enough taxes in 2022, and he's going to be like,
wait a second. This is Truth Social. This is not truth. This is not truth. Take it off. Censor it. Take it off now. I don't think it.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. But it's funny because, like, people, Dad, I love you, but he's not on social media anymore. He'll be on his, though. He'll be on his social media.
It's like all the people. Let me put my phone on Do Not Disturb real quick.
It's just funny to me, the texts and emails.
I'm joining Parler.
Exactly.
Where are all you Parler people at? Do you still actually use that?
Yeah.
Probably not.
No.
Like and comment if you do, though. We love you anyway.
Yeah. We'll let you behind the wall.
We'll let you behind our big, beautiful wall. A big paywall that we have. We've erected. the best paywall. It's the best one ever.
Oh, man. Well, hey, we think we're funny. You may not, and that's okay. We're all entitled to our own opinions.
Yeah, we are.
But
goodness.
to not prolong the point any further. Oh boy, this is going to be a fun podcast.
Yeah. I couldn't talk last night. We had so we're not doing small groups.
It's not so small. It's big, like everything I do.
Bigly.
Yeah,
it's a bigly group.
But we've combined them all, so we're doing like Wednesday nights collectively, and so we started evangelism last night, and I'm so excited about it. Mm-hmm. We're doing 3 weeks. We did 3 or 4 weeks of prayer teaching, and then we've shifted to teaching on evangelism. And our hope is that everyone will come out of that having like their one, So we're kind of doing this like hodgepodge SBC thing.
Yeah, it's funny because I ended up like drifting that way last night with my message in teen class too.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, it just kind of happened. You know.
I almost said something that I'm really glad I didn't say.
Listen, we'll let that one go. Let it go.
So fine.
Go to your coworker and say, "Listen, have you heard the good news? It's the best."
Oh, gosh.
There's only one person that's walked this planet that's better than me, and his name is Jesus. And some would even say that he's not better, but I think he is.
That's not what I say. That's what they say.
Only Mike Pence, he convinced me. He convinced me, but then he turned on me. So I can't.
For 4 years, Mike Pence is the best, and he doesn't vote his way in the convention.
He's a coward. He's the worst. He doesn't believe in Jesus anymore. Isn't that what you evangelicals do? As soon as someone doesn't believe what you believe, you say they're not saved.
Anyway.
That drifted like Hispanic Trump at the end.
So many things to say about that. Oh yeah. Anyway, but it was really good. But I'm like struggling to form a sentence, a complete thought, like pronunciation issues. So anyway, I have no idea the direction that this is going to go this morning.
Yeah, it's going to be great. So on a more serious note, as we shift moods here, so this past week we jumped in, if you can't tell by the title of this podcast, we jumped into a brand new series in the book of Habakkuk, which is it's going to be really interesting.
Yeah.
Just because I feel like the work itself is very unique. Like it stands out pretty hard, and you'll see why. But we're new in the Habakkuk series. This is our first week, and so we're going to be diving in on that. And this guy's got some stuff that he didn't cover on Sunday, which, by the way, I think I speak for the whole audience when I say thank you for still finishing on time, even though you had more to cover.
Yeah, I
think you finished on time at least.
No, I went over a little bit.
Thank you anyway.
Yeah, but I could have gone further, but I was like, we gotta stop.
Yeah,
we gotta pull the plug on it. But yeah, I could have preached for like another 30 minutes, just because it was the application part.
Yeah,
and I think that those are the areas that I really thrive in, that I enjoy more than any. But I just got carried away with like the background. It's the first week, when you're talking about the first week of the series. Context. Yeah, I really want you all to feel like you understand where this narrative fits in, and I'm also talking through it as well. And I do see a difference between not preaching a 9 a.m. and then an 11. There's a difference.
Yeah, because you don't get a practice round.
I don't get a practice round. Yeah.
I like it better, like if I were to speak just one, because I get, like, it all happens within, you preach 2 messages within, 3 hours?
Yeah.
And, by the time you're midway through the second one, I personally will miss things because I think I already said it. And I did, but, not during that service.
Yeah.
And so it just it's a weird thing for my brain to comprehend.
I don't know. I tend to really just not that I don't rehearse the material, but it's I just have, it's fresh. Like I can just roll through it again. But I think it was neat to see because we moved to one service.
It's nice. Well, that joke didn't land last hour. Won't use that one.
Yeah, I need to tweak that. But we went back to one service for a few weeks, trying to just really get everybody on the same page. It seems that the COVID restrictions are lifting and things are becoming better. So we just thought, well, we'll bring everybody together, and it's there's still elderly, immune compromised folks that are not coming, and that's okay, and that's why we'll continue to live stream. But it was good though to see. I think our highest attended service since COVID.
You think?
I think so.
Including Easter this past year?
No, not including Easter.
Christmas too.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't. I would just say a normal
Sunday. I thought the vibes
just
were just good.
It continues to increase.
Yeah, it's good. It's nice to kind of arrive at some form of normalcy again, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
The new normal, as they say.
The new normal.
Yeah. So, well, let's jump in here. All right, so jumping back in here. So Habakkuk Week One. So we'll kick it off. What?
Nothing. I'm just thinking about what we said before we just cut back in.
Hey, get behind the wall, the paywall. Dude, it would be, okay.
So much content.
Yeah, so much. You won't even believe it. We negotiate the best trade deals with YouTube. Just kidding.
Please get us into Habakkuk.
Yeah, Habakkuk chapter 1. So I guess maybe give us, you gave a lot of context, and maybe fill us in, give us a brief, just kind of overview of where the book's at. Judah is about to experience the wrath of Babylon, and this is just kind of where they're at. So maybe fill the people in on some contextual pieces that maybe you missed, or you feel like are pertinent if they did not already listen.
Yeah, I think we go back and listen. There's tons. We just talk about 1 Kings chapter 21, I think, through 24. And really kind of show the decline of Judah when those kingdoms separate and they split, and Judah takes this route, this path that's just absolutely not good. And so I just wanted to show in the message, as we're getting into Habakkuk, what led to this prophet praying this way.
Yeah.
Because that's what essentially you're going to read an exchange between Habakkuk and the Lord. And that's what's different. This prophet is different in the sense that he is not receiving prophecy from the Lord to take to the people. He's going to the Lord on behalf of the people. He's seeing something and going to the Lord saying, look, I don't get this. I don't understand why it has to be this way. And so he is unique in that it is, most prophets are from the Lord to the people, but he's from the people to the Lord. And so when you kind of like see the picture that's painted in Kings, and you think about Manasseh and what that guy did, all the way down from Josiah trying to like reform the kingdom, to him being killed. I think he was like, he wasn't that old, I think he was a young guy, still a young king. And I don't remember exactly how long do you remember how long Josiah was king of Israel or king of Judah?
No,
I don't remember, but essentially he dies a tragic death on the battlefield, and they put one of his sons in and then he does evil in the eyes of the Lord, and does not follow in the steps of his father, and then essentially Babylon comes in, takes that guy off the throne, puts his brother in, and changes his name. And so that's kind of like the between Jehoiakim and then when Babylon steps in and replaces the person who's on the throne and changes his name, that's where the prophet is. And so he's in that period of time where it's evident that the wicked behavior that he's addressing is Judah's wicked behavior. It's them as a people. So he's saying that, and I think the expression is there's still righteous people here. There's still people here that want to see the Lord Yahweh restored as the one and only true God of Judah, of Israel. And it's just the heart cries out, and then he has an exchange with the Lord. And so we dealt with really the first exchange, but mainly covered Habakkuk's perspective. We didn't talk about the Lord's perspective a whole lot in that message. And so those are a few things that I think that we could talk about today on the conversation.
Yeah, that's good. Let me ask you a question. I was just reading through the first chapter again to brush up before the podcast. And the first line, does the CSB use the word oracle? That's not the question, but I was just curious.
In the beginning of chapter, or towards the end of chapter 2, I think.
Oh, no, the first verse, the oracle which Habakkuk the prophet saw.
I know, but I think it's going to say it again. Down
chapter 2,
where the woes are after the second response from the Lord. I think that it may say it again.
Yeah.
But that word oracle is, I don't think it's in the NASB, is it? Is it?
It is. And I was just, it's, the heavy saying, I guess, is a good way to, not translate that, but better describe it.
Yeah.
Because Masa is related to the word Nasa, which means, or Nasar, which means to carry. And so it's like a weighty, so Habakkuk is seeing like a weighty thing.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is like the first line, the oracle which Habakkuk the prophet saw, and then it's like his response to it. And so I don't know, in your opinion, do you think that the oracle that he saw, like, is he seeing or hearing of the destruction of Judah and then lamenting and praying, and going to intercede on behalf of the people to God after seeing that? Or do you think that like maybe he is like actively in a vision, and this is like he sees it, and this is kind of his response like in this vision that he's having? Am I making sense?
Yeah.
I just read it and I was like, that's kind of it seems like it's cut. The introduction is just very like short. You know?
No, it's the time frames and the time periods are, people don't, there's a lot of conjecture. Like people don't really agree widely on this, and I think I drew some lines, and I think I probably wrote it down. Let me see.
Yeah.
There's a couple of things in here where I talk about, right here, the almost consensus view sees the wicked in Judah itself, possibly Jehoiakim, and sees the Chaldeans as the instrument of the Lord to punish the wicked. And then the probable date just prior to the fall of Nineveh. Like, those are the two things that, kind of unite folks on this front.
But, for sure.
But
I'm not saying like timeline-wise.
No, but I'm saying there's a lot of people, I guess, in saying that, there's a lot of people that disagree. And that's in one regard to how it was written. Some people think that this is like 3 different stories that are piecemealed together, because you've got this one exchange at the beginning, then you have a middle exchange that seems to be disconnected timeline wise.
Yeah.
And then you have this like prophetic song right at the end. So I think that I'm more leaning towards, this as being almost like 3 separate events.
Yeah, I see that. And my thought, just personally, I haven't read, before you walked in from the bathroom, I read like a page of...
Thanks for telling him that I was in the bathroom. Appreciate that.
He wasn't using the bathroom. He was cleaning it, being a good servant. Just so we're all clear here. He was not blowing it up. But I read a little bit of I read the New Bible Commentary a lot, which I've just found to be really helpful. That's one that I usually recommend if people ask me, which is rare, because how many times has somebody asked you, hey, what Bible commentary do you prefer?
Not very often.
But I read some, and I didn't really see it addressed. But to me, my assumption is that it's probably a scribal edit after the fact. Where these things were compiled together, and they were just like, hey, this is an oracle. You know what I mean? And that's, most of the minor prophets are oracles to the nations.
Yeah.
Or I'm sorry. Well, yeah, more or less. That's what they are.
And that seems to be the trend here.
Yeah. There's I can't remember who said it, but there's a person, as far as like how these things were compiled and put together, there's really...
CSB, it says the pronouncement.
The pronouncement. Well, that's fair. I think that's a fair translation. It's pretty much the same thing.
Yeah.
But, there's 2 ways you could think about it. One is like the holy stapler was an image that I've heard used where, Habakkuk the prophet dies, and, those who were his understudies are like, oh gosh, we have to preserve this guy's work. And so they gather them all together and they staple them together, and like, boom. That's what we have.
Yeah.
And then you have on the other end of that, like, oh gosh, like how do we take those, or maybe it was Habakkuk himself, or one of his contemporaries, but how do we take those and structure them in a way that honors what was said and done in a way that is coherent? Yeah. And so I think, my thought is that it's probably a scribal like heading that they put in as verse 1, much like what you see in the Psalms, a Psalm of David.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
But I don't know. It's not a huge deal. I was just reading it and I was like, so is he like having a vision and this is a conversation that's taking place, or is this in response to a vision, was kind of where I was at with it.
Well, it's interesting because, you look at the Lord's response, it says, look at the nations, observe, be utterly astounded. So it's like...
It's kind of both.
Well, yeah, you get the sense that he is seeing something, and then the Lord's saying, like, you need to look, and I think I put it this way, but you need to look for the Lord in the places that you don't want to look for him, and that's the scary part about this vision, this oracle, this pronouncement, is that when we're talking about the wickedness, or when we're talking about the things that we struggle with in our own lives, so often we look away from those things, and the Lord tells him, look into that.
Yeah.
And I'm there. I'm at the middle of it.
For sure.
Which is just crazy to me.
Well, that kind of ties back into Michael Crawford's message about
it does.
Allowing him to redeem things that we want to put to bed that are no good. But yeah, look for the Lord in unexpected places, and where you'll find him is behind the paywall. Like and subscribe. I wish we had a paywall. I don't think we do.
No, we're not there yet.
Yeah, we're not there, and we probably won't be there, and that's okay.
Yep.
Okay,
we think we're funny. Once again, we'll establish that point.
Yeah, we think so.
At this point, we would meet and do this regardless of
whether y'all watched or not. We're gonna do this.
Oh, that's so funny.
So moving from so we got some context. We kind of got the intro and the general idea of the book. Hit me with what you missed out on Sunday. Tell us what the audience. This is actually the paywall right here. If you think
here
about
it
it
is.
This is the stuff that you didn't get for free on Sunday.
The sauce,
the secret sauce.
Observations from the Transparent Prophet's Prayer. We covered
that's
that.
A tongue twister.
Yeah, it is. We covered that in detail, and then the second part, verses 5 through 11 of chapter 1, are my observations of the Lord's answers. So what I think is just really unique, right, is the way the prophet is having this exchange with the Lord. And In doing so, we kind of get a behind the scenes look at what that looks like with his prayers and the way that he's so transparent. I think I even said he's probably like an Enneagram 4.
You did say that.
You know, he's like this creative. He's wearing it on his sleeve. He's taking everything personally. And it's so you really, those that are more emotional, those people that really take things to heart, I think that there's lessons for us to learn.
Him and Jeremiah probably would have been besties.
Yeah, man.
You know?
Oh, yeah.
They would have had a crying sesh together.
They love lamenting. There's those lamenters over there. You know, they're all about talking about the sin and desperation of our land. But I just think it's helpful to kind of put things in perspective and see the way the Lord answers him. So just to talk about that a little bit, I alluded to the first point. Find me in the places that you don't want to find me. God is not above your reality. He's in your reality. And I don't mean to say that the Lord's not above the thing, that the thing.
It's both.
Yeah.
You know, the thing.
He's like,
it's not there yet.
The thing.
You got to have like the ring in the, like that. Yeah. We'll get serious at some point.
Yeah. Anyway, but he's, that's that impression's. It's gonna get there.
It's gonna develop.
Next
much
week,
like
I'm gonna be here with aviators on in a suit, holding an ice cream cone, and I'm just gonna be like, huh. It's gonna be so.
One scoop, not two.
Yeah, it's gonna be so good.
Oh my gosh.
Oh man.
It's a lament.
Yeah. So find me in places that you don't want to find me. I'm not above your reality. I mean, and I got that from verse 5. So just scrolling here, it says, look at the nations, observe, be utterly astounded, for I'm doing something in your days that you will not believe when you hear about it. So he's saying, look into the very thing that Habakkuk was saying, like, hey, what?
Finish your thought, and then I'll jump in.
He's saying, look into the thing that you're having a problem with. Habakkuk is like, I can't believe you're going to, if you look at his prayer, how long, Lord? How long will we cry out for help and you're not going to listen? So Habakkuk's painting this picture in his vision or prayer, whatever it is, that the Lord is distant. And the Lord's saying, look into that thing that is actually the worst part about your worst nightmare, Habakkuk, hasn't happened yet. And I want you to look into that. Look into the future. Look into when this thing doesn't go the way that you think it's supposed to go, I'm there in the middle of it. And so we have to like take this and apply it to our lives in this instance. What if the Lord doesn't answer your prayer? Not only does he not answer it, he does, but he answers it in like the worst way possible.
Right.
Lord, I don't want that thing to happen. The thing. I don't want that thing to happen. And the Lord says, yeah, not only is that going to happen, but I'm going to be in the middle of it. Mm-hmm. Like that's really the exchange here. And so we've really got to change our perspective to seeing the Lord in our problems and in our realities rather than him being above it, changing it because we feel like we shouldn't go through that. The Lord's saying, right. I'm actually the active agent in working out those problems.
Yeah.
I can wait to go to number 2.
Sure. No, I just on that specific verse, I thought it was really interesting when you read it. This is actually, it's verse 5. Mm-hmm. It's one of those verses that like you see on like an Instagram post that's like beautiful looking, like look among the nations, observe and be astonished. Wonder because I am doing something in your days that you would not believe if you were told. And all the woo girls on Instagram are like, yes,
with their white claws.
We love the Lord so much.
Right. And then the very next verse, I am raising up the Chaldeans, that fierce and impetuous people, to destroy you.
You will be killed.
I'm like, oh my gosh, we are so dumb.
We're retarded. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. It is. It's the truth. It's just, those are those verses.
Man, you can't say retarded on air.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean it that way, but I did. It's the craziest thing. It's people taking and this is the humor side of our little
Yeah.
podcast here. People taking the scriptures out of context, and we're not saying that we're scholars, right? But just a little bit
Just
of
a
homework.
little bit of effort, guys.
Just a little bit of homework, and you realize that this isn't a verse that you want to paste and talk about the Lord being good,
right. Even like reading the verse prior to and after is like
That's
super
helpful.
helpful.
It's
super helpful.
Yeah, I could. That's funny. We should do that. We should take that verse, put it through the Bible.
No,
YouTube
you know what we
version
should do?
filter,
Is
and
we should take that. Yes.
Well, I'm saying we could put it out on our own Facebook and see how many people like and share, like from our church, that are like, "Oh, I love this verse."
Yeah, and just caption it
And
like
then
this
just-
is a test.
Just dump on them. Just be like, "Failed. You failed."
Just dump on all of them.
We're so loving.
Somebody's gonna
We're so
comment
loving
like,
and
"Oh,
we're so
needed
kind."
this today."
That's my favorite. We're so loving and we're so kind.
Oh man, yeah, I'm gonna do that.
Love is patient. Love is kind. Anyway.
Oh man,
I think too. It's like, can we riff here for a minute?
yeah, let's riff, man. This is our conversation. We can do what we want.
Yeah.
Y'all are just
You,
here.
you might want to leave. You might want to leave the room.
Go and get a drink and come back.
Yeah, a stiff one. You might need a stiff.
A stout one, friend. Get you a twisted.
Woo!
Oh wow, this is this is one for the books.
I think the thing is with the culture, right, that we are faced with. Oh man, this is good. I was at a culture symposium. I don't even know if I'm saying that right.
If you use the word symposium in your event, you don't want people to take your event seriously.
Dude. Michael, he doesn't mean it.
I mean it.
There should be a paywall if you have the word symposium
Yes.
involved. Someone should have to pay to be there. But anyway, I think we were talking about culture at the culture symposium, and just discussing culture in churches. And I think that the way social media has changed and altered the way that we do church it's not
Pretty wild.
good. It's really not good in a lot of ways. And I think, for us, like we really, for us at Bethlehem, I should say, we really care about how things affect our people.
Yeah.
And we created this podcast for you. For if there were 4 of you,
It's really for us, but
it's for us. But if there were 4 of you that were like, yeah, I want a little bit more about the message. That's the idea behind
Right.
behind this conversation. And we will continue to do things for our little corner of the world.
Yep.
It's not.
we're just like Jesus. We're all about the remnant because that's who listens.
It's funny. Anyway, but I think for us, it's for me rather just watching the landscape of what social media is doing. I think that we have to push back against some of those things.
Oh, for sure.
But we were talking about the Demon Hunter. let's just title him Demon Hunter.
Who's that?
Greg Locke.
Oh gosh, this guy.
Yeah, it's. Are you changing the temperature? of
Yeah,
the
I'm
mug?
just turning my mug off.
Yeah, you're so bougie.
Bougie. That is a word for that.
Yeah, he has an Ember mug that he loves. You love it, right? It's good.
Oh, it's great. Yeah, buy one, please.
Yeah, I have a $20 thermos from
You'll feel-
Costco. Oh, it wasn't
You'll feel
20.
guilty about it
I
at
paid
first.
20 for 2, so this is $10.
Oh, $10. Yeah, this is. I don't even want to say what I spent.
Exactly. For somebody who's a tightwad too. That's
I know. My wife was like, "Come on, you have to get it. You'll like it so much." And I was like, "Okay."
Was it a gift?
It was like Christmas.
Oh, there you
Yeah.
go.
So it's
Sure,
justifiable.
just fine.
So all you out there who think that I just blow money, know that I would not make this purchase any other time of the year.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really good. It's like I think 90 minutes or 80 minutes on a charge.
It's pretty awesome.
And it comes with like this little teacup plate that is the charging station, and you can like sip it,
And
sit
if
it
you
back
don't
on
drink
there.
your coffee in 80, 90 minutes, you don't deserve to have it.
I agree with
It might
that.
as well be cold.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
there's an app that you can control the temperature. I personally prefer 130 degrees is what I prefer. But you can go. I think it goes up to like 150.
Yeah.
Which I feel like the coffee would evaporate before I
So
finished it.
visit www.ember.com/conversation and order yours today from our podcast.
Go to policygenius.com.
So funny. Anyway, I think that we really have to like search ourselves and figure out what is applicable from the text. How do we apply this? And if not, we just end up creating some hype for a crowd. We end up creating hype for what? Like, what is the point? You know, Jesus, yes, there were multitudes that came to him, but he was interested in discipling 12.
Right.
And so I think that we've missed the mark so much because we're ready for something to go viral.
Right.
Instead of just being normal.
Right.
And that was remember that message?
Feels pressured to go viral.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Which is just not something that, we should have to be concerned about.
No, it doesn't matter. Anyway, I don't know how we got sidetracked.
Like and share this post, by the way.
On Greg.
So that it can go viral.
Right. As if.
Yeah. I don't know. I think that there's a lot of stuff out there, if you're watching preaching and videos and stuff, like you do your homework, do your research. I think that guy specifically, I've been seeing a ton of him in my feed. Maybe it's just
did you follow him at the conference?
No.
No.
You talking about Locke?
Oh, no, I thought you Leak.
No.
I thought that's who you were talking
I was
about.
talking about the Demon Hunter.
Oh, well, yeah, let's talk about him for a minute. This bizarre, fundy weirdo.
Yeah, it's just strange. It's like he's burning Harry Potter stuff.
Yeah. So, do you want to hear a cringe story about my first ever youth activity that I went to with you?
No.
No?
Yeah, I do.
You don't want it for the audience? Okay, so it was the hayride. And
were we burning stuff?
Yes. So listen.
This is great.
So my first ever interaction with this guy, I get on this raunchy Calvary bus, and I'm sitting next to my cousin Billy, and you come up and you have a piece of chocolate in your hand, and it was like one of the candy eyeballs because it's Halloween, and you were like, "Hey guys, want an eyeball?" And then I'm like, "Okay, it's kind of weird, high energy, not my flavor, but whatever, And so we get to this event. It's like a haunted hayride. Super cool. We all almost died. It was great. I met my wife that night. Bye, Miss Charlotte.
Hold on, y'all.
Yes, please. Yes. Yeah. Love you. That was Miss Charlotte.
Yep.
So the hayride's great, all that good stuff. And then, of course, you preach. You showed a clip from Left Behind the year after. But this year it was a fire and you threw like a bunch of movies in it. And while you were preaching, it was like, it all starts when you're watching Shrek, and guess what? One day you've got a baby. And I was like, and
I say that?
You did. And I was like, wow, that's I like Shrek, like this is weird. But I came back.
You did. You came back. You stuck around. Oh my gosh.
I was like, okay, so we're burning Shrek and Harry Potter movies and whatever else was in the fire. There was another in the fire, and it was Shrek.
Yeah.
Fiona.
It's just like,
and what's funny is you quote Shrek all the time.
I don't know why I was burning Shrek. I have no idea.
I mean, you specifically talked about Shrek, which was funny.
That was funny. I love that movie.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, it's just weird, man. And I think that's. Here's another thing. I saw a post. I think it was last night. A guy posting it was like some test on rats or something, and they were utilizing that test to show that. Okay, now I gotta say what it is. So they put 3 rats in water and submerged them, and they lasted for 15 minutes treading water, and then when they started to drown, they pulled the rats out. This is an old thing. Yeah. It's on Facebook. It's one of those cheesy illustrations. And then they put the rats back in the water, and they found that they tread water for 60 hours. Right. And the whole point is
because they felt like there was a way out.
That's right. If you know that you're going to be saved, right, you can last and endure anything. And so every Christian was like, woo.
Greg Cardone pops out listen, you can make it.
You can do it. Yeah. 10x times 60 hours. That's what you can do. Yeah. It's so stupid. But man. It's those posts, but then underneath of it, it's all the ex-IFB atheists are newsflash, you're not going to be saved.
Ouch.
Literally people just so bitter. And I think that that's where it comes from, that culture of extremism.
For sure. Yeah.
And so I see this guy like Greg Locke out there burning things and casting out demons. It's literally he sounds I don't even get it. Yeah. But I was telling Cody, I literally, heard him preach as like an 8th grader or something. We went and maybe 9th or something. Like he was preaching youth conferences at Franklin Road, like years and years and years ago, and essentially he had a falling out with them, and he's always
and I stand here today because Greg Locke cast a demon out of me when I was in the 8th grade.
right. But it's that constant like bickering and making this how do you say it? Like making a mountain out of a molehill,
For sure.
And then you gather this following, and so I think that there's just so much hype like around things like that,
Yeah.
and that's not, to me, that's not the gospel.
It's hype for the sake of hype.
It is,
Yeah,
and
you just want something to be mad about.
like
You want
a
something to
zinger.
yell about. Yeah, that's like your shtick.
Yeah,
as a person,
100%.
because that's what gets the clicks, the views, and.
But then here's what they do. They say, they say, if you're not, and there's somebody else who I somewhat respect, so I'll
Leave their name out.
I'll be nice. I don't know why I'm being nice, but I'm going to be nice. But the point is there's other pastors that think that you have to do that politically, or you're wrong.
Yeah,
And that's wrong. That's stupid.
for sure. Big time.
It's making politics the savior. It's making politics really the main focus, and that's not the main focus. Look at the New Testament. They were operating within a governmental system and structure, and they were, if anything, they were playing by the rules.
Yeah.
And when they were being
And might I say, a far more oppressive system
far
than
more
we are today.
Far-
Nobody picketed when Paul went to jail.
no,
Nobody stormed the city hall when
they prayed when Peter was in there. They prayed.
Yeah, that's what
Right?
they did.
They hid. They were hiding.
Right.
I just think that we like create these moments because here's the thing, like if, and this is something that I find interesting. I read that book by Robert something or another. I'd have to look it up, but this is on Christian dissidents and how like the Russians and the Germans were reacting, even I think Ukrainians more than likely, but how they were reacting to communism. And these were Catholic,
Yeah.
these were Catholic folks that were being oppressed. It didn't look like what you think these guys are taking a stand now. The
Right.
fight against tyranny,
Yeah.
as
I
it's
feel
like
like-
the perfect polished pose, as they're getting paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to preach a conference on freedom.
Yeah, it's
Like,
ridiculous.
It's not reality. And so
Right.
we surround ourselves with these, knuckleheads, and all it is basically a political thing. and
Yeah,
political
it's smoke
stuff.
and mirrors.
Yeah, it's not. And two, you wouldn't say the things that you're saying if you were actually dealing with people. You wouldn't treat people like that. You wouldn't tell people like that. Like I am a pastor, right? I help people. I counsel people. I talk with, many people throughout the week, and I pray with folks, and it doesn't become a headline. It's a
Right.
it's a private like even people from other churches, like people from other denominations, like I'll help anybody. Like it's not, the gospel transcends all of those things. So anyway, I think that we would just do a lot better, like just focusing on, the
What actually matters.
right, the mechanics of this relationship, the mechanics of this prayer, right? Rather than like cherry picking certain things and just running with it.
Yeah. Big
Anyway.
time. No, I agree. And I think that it's just, I think America or Americans, we love a good underdog story, and when somebody's like fighting the power and we're like, yeah, that's what America is. You got guns, bro. Like,
But I'm not for Second Amendment. I'm
and
not,
that's
not for those
right.
things.
And that's the line though, is like we are conservatives. We do both like firearms and our freedoms, but we also both understand that that's not, like, the gospel is not about what sort of freedoms our government chooses to grant us.
Yeah.
And the unalienable rights, quote unquote, that the conservatives like to tout. Like, I'm sorry, like, these are not, Scripture does not guarantee me the right to own a firearm. Like, it just doesn't. And that's fine that's a staple of our nation's belief system, but it's not biblical.
No, and I think that
Look, somebody's going to hear that and they're going to nitpick that. And I get the general sense
protecting
of
your family is biblical.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
But still, like, we take the Constitution because we feel like it's biblical principle, and therefore it has to be defended at all costs, because this is like the same as, and it's just not.
Look, as an American, like, I'll always step in and say, look, my vote matters. right? I'll vote the way that I feel like I should vote. And, even to the point of, rallies and things like that about certain political issues, because I'm an American citizen, I'll do my due diligence as an American in those situations. But, to say that this is how it's always looked over the course of 2,000 years, when we're really just zoomed in on the last 300-400.
Right.
That to me is the error
Very
in our
limited
ways.
perspective.
Yeah, and the Lord could choose, to put us into bondage and persecution, and it's like literally not taking into consideration that there are people from other countries that are dying for their faith. There are people from other countries that are engaging in the same spiritual warfare that we're engaging in, and they don't have the rights and freedoms that we have. So that's why I'm saying it's more like a toddler throwing a temper tantrum than it is, a good gospel Bible believing Christian taking a stand on something that they should or shouldn't. That's what I'm saying. Like, it's not apples for apples.
It's not the same.
And that's where I think that we really need to be able to prioritize those things rather than lumping them all in. I think it would become so clear, right? If like someone from another country and another nation like looks in on what we have and they just go, "You guys are just so stinking spoiled."
Oh, and we are.
Yeah.
Because
that's
they
what
would be
is.
right.
Yeah. But anyway,
yeah, there's a fine line, and I think that
don't fall for the hype.
Don't fall for the hype.
Don't fall for the hype.
Not everything that goes viral is worth buying into.
Yeah.
And but for Habakkuk, like, he's here, and this is like it's kind of weird because like national Israel at this time was God's covenant people, and so like the political aspects of it were, spiritual, right? Like his faith and his identity as a citizen of Judah, like those two things were inseparable because, everything.
It was a geographical location.
It was a geographical location.
Yeah.
God's covenant with the people had everything to do with the land, and they were about to get kicked out of the land and demolished by, an entity. And that's very different than any war that would happen today, because he's like, hey, God.
And the Lord let it happen.
Yeah, he let it happen. Not only did he let it happen, he was a part of it.
Yeah.
And I think that there's this Calvinist tension here, right? Where like, okay, did God allow it to happen, or did he do it? And I think it's a little bit of both. You know what I mean? It's a both issue. But it's very different for him. And, we're not in the same boat. But for God to allow his covenant people to be destroyed and dispersed, Habakkuk's like, what are you doing? Yeah. Like, God, what is going on? Like, how... you can't destroy us. Like, there are still people who hold to your name and believe. And God's like, I'm doing something that you won't even believe.
Yeah.
And on the other side of the issue, we have the rest of Scripture, right? We know that the Judahites came back from exile, and we know that the Lion of Judah and David was preserved, and Jesus was born, and here we are today.
Yeah.
We know the whole story, but to Habakkuk, he's like, how long is this going to go on, God? Like, what's going on? But it's just a very different perspective from him, for sure.
It is. And where's that perspective, in our nation today?
Right.
Where's that perspective when we can put it in our context and see what we have and how blessed we've been? It's like there's we've got to bridge that gap. So these observations, let's keep going on this because I think it will give even more context to it.
Yeah.
It is.
But okay. It's okay.
So the second thing is disinherited nations perpetuate themselves, but God is in control of what he owns. Verse 6. So I think this is that tension you're talking about. Mm-hmm. So the third thing is our perspective of wrong can be right with the Lord using the wrong not to make a right, but to bring about his purposes. Mm-hmm. So that's where like this line of, predeterminism versus provisional.
Right.
That's like, to me, this tension that we have to hold, that what you're going to see in Scripture is that the Lord is using the wrong, right? He's even perpetuating it because what they're doing is perpetuating itself. And I talked to someone about this week, but the law of sowing and reaping is real.
Yeah.
So the Lord uses the laws that were created, the order, right? And I think that's maybe even to some of the things that I'm reading in this John Walton book. It's like
so good. Order was the thing.
The order that God is creating, not the water, not the physical manifestations What we're missing when we read Genesis is that it's the systems and structures that the Lord is creating, not the thing itself. And so the Lord's working. And where this becomes tangible is you have to make the right decision. You have to decide to follow the Lord. You have to decide, and I'm not going to give away the farm because this comes into next week's message, which I hope you'll come Sunday morning or tune in online and watch it. But there's a part that we have in this, and our part is not judging God for how he is judging the nations.
Yes.
He is using the nations. He's using the disinherited as well as the inherited. And we should be thankful for that because we were once a disinherited nation.
Right.
We were once...
Every single person watching this, chances are,
we were in opposition. And so it proves the fact that we're sitting here talking about Scripture and discussing the way this prophet handled this, probably 700-ish BC, it proves that what the Lord does is perfect and right and it works. Yeah. So this is, for those that don't believe the Lord or believe that all of this is, some sort of cause and effect, like, you're missing the point.
Yeah.
You're missing the fact that the Lord has been working in this whole cosmos all along to bring about his purposes. And so once again, our submitting to what the Lord is doing in that greater work of the gospel is what's important.
Yes. And I think that, too, something that should be gleaned from this, gleaned, whatever, is that, Habakkuk was already like Judah had not even been taken into exile yet. And he's like, how long, Lord? Yeah. And, what he didn't realize at the time was you're sick of it now, but it's going to get worse. And not only is it going to get worse, you're going to be gone, the Judahites will not come back during your lifetime.
Right.
The issue will not come to resolution when you would like it to come to resolution. And we have to look at the time span, because really, 3 BC or whatever year you think Jesus was born, the Israelites still viewed themselves as if they were in exile. Why? Because the presence had not returned.
That's right.
To the temple. And it did return in Jesus, but not in the temple in that way. But exile lasted a long time. If this is 700 BC roughly that he's speaking this or writing this, centuries later this issue would be kind of solved and resolved, and probably in a way that he wouldn't have recognized during his time.
Yeah.
But we have to accept that the issues that we face, the struggles that we experience, it's probably things are not usually resolved in our timetables. And I think that we wait in suspense for relief. We wait in suspense for, and maybe not that we can't get relief. It's not what I'm saying. But I just think that, we have to look at this, what Habakkuk said, or what God said to Habakkuk, but look for the Lord in the places where you don't think that he is, because we will experience struggle. Jesus said, you will endure persecution. But we have to look for him in that. And in that moment, yes, there's pain, yes, there's suffering, but we will find relief in the person who Jesus is, because our struggles are never ending.
That's right.
Until he comes back. And Habakkuk's like, oh, great. If he could see into the future, he would have been like, oh, that's great. God comes in the flesh and exile's over, and he's bringing his people back to him. And then there's persecution, there's death, there's, and here we are 2,000 years later still experiencing struggle. It never looks like what we think it should look like. And we have to reconcile that. And we have to look and say, you know what, even though it's not what I think it should look like, it's the Lord is working, the Lord is good. And if we're not careful, we create our own Edens, and what's missing from those Edens is, actual peace and the actual presence of God in those little Edens that we try to create.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so true. And the fact that we're living in a time period where we can do those constructs that are even close to what we would call acceptable, and at some point a comparison to what we think is worthy. For us to give up what the Lord has for our lives it's crazy to me. And it is nuts. The enemy working in such a way that we have to reconcile the fact that, even if what the Lord has for you is not what you pictured, it is what's best. It is the path that you should take. But we are just so self-centered and selfish and all of those things, that we struggle with in this day and age, at this period of time in history. And so we have to be faithful to what the Lord is doing in our lives. And so often he uses suffering and struggles to get us there. And so if you're going through something, if you are, wondering why, like chances are you have a great opportunity to get to know the Lord better. You have a great opportunity in this moment to find the Lord. And that's historically how he's worked, more so than
he's worked far
so
more
great.
through struggle than prosperity.
Yeah.
I read that book. I think it's called Dreams and Visions, but it's just about the gospel awakening in the Muslim world, and it's a movement that's growing faster than wildfire, and it's all happening under persecution and the fact that if the government finds out you're a Christian, you'll be killed.
Yeah.
But it's moving, it's spreading, and people are gathering, and church is happening, and stuff that I read this book and I was like, this is stuff that we almost don't believe it because it sounds like Book of Acts stuff.
Yeah.
But it's happening. It's just not happening in our context in that way.
Right.
But boy, the Lord's moving, and he's moving whether we feel like the circumstances are ideal or not.
Yeah. He's so much bigger than we think and even give him credit for.
Yeah.
And he's moving and he's working and he wants to do something in your life. So just come along for the ride as we continue to go through Habakkuk. And this coming week, we'll talk about the second prayer and response from the Lord.
Yeah. Thanks for hanging out with us, and we will see you on Sunday, whether in person or online, and next Thursday.
Yep. Adios.
Yep. God bless. Do less.